This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV 24/7.
In just a few weeks from now, a very important event takes place in this country, and that's the general elections. You have politicians turning up at all sorts of places, from schools to pubs to playgrounds, asking people to vote for them. But what is it that really matters to younger people in this country? And that's what we're trying to find out here in a school in North London. Tell me, what's that one issue that's really close to your heart and that really matters to you and that politicians should address?
Personally, it's the gap between the people that are unemployed and want to get a job and being employed. There's a little grey area that kind of keeps people on benefits because, you know, it ends up being more expensive for them to become employed and work the flexible hours than it is for them to just stay on the benefits.
Do you feel as if there's an incentive to not work?
Yeah, certainly. It's particularly for people that are receiving disability benefits. Some of the people that don't get personal independence payments are no longer, if you don't get that, you're not entitled to carers allowance, which would be able to help people to kind of get into the workforce or to continue in the day-to-day running of things. And then also the advice for entrepreneurs. We had to fend for ourselves in terms of trying to start a business.
You set up your own business?
Yes.
Tell me a bit about your story. How did you go about doing that?
Well, Lena and myself, we set up a modelling agency called Face for Music. It's a curve modelling agency, so we specialise in models with curves. So it's a niche area, and we're the first in the UK to have done this. But we also get a lot of people.
And you set up your business because you were unemployed, or you're looking for jobs, or to give me a bit of background?
Yeah, I set up the business because I was, number one, I suffer from blackouts. I was in the workforce. I'd been working since I was 16. Once I'd started to have the blackouts, they started to have an effect on me. So I was having them about 3 times a day. For employers, it's almost impossible to keep me employed. So I started I applied for benefits, for disability benefits. I was declined, I think, because my disabilities aren't visible. So
Sure. Without getting into the details, but I want to ask you that.
So for me,
I found it important to set up a business. Yeah.
So I felt really alienated, and then I just thought, okay, I'm going to do something else. I've got a degree behind me, and I don't want to waste it, and I don't want to sit at home all day. So Lena and myself, we set up Face for Music. Okay. And we started to reach out, and we needed a little bit of assistance.
Okay, fantastic. Well, what about you, ma'am? One issue that you think politicians aren't addressing that younger people really care about, what would that be?
The area that I'm quite concerned about is the issue of education. I think that we've got some politicians who are generally just disconnected with the sorts of experiences that young people are actually having in schools. And they're trying to create an ideal pupil that doesn't really fit what actual young people look like. And often the ideal pupil aren't young people who are disabled, for example, come from certain minority ethnic backgrounds or special educational needs. If they are not able to achieve in a certain way or like certain types of subjects, then I don't really think that politicians are generally as interested in them as they should be.
And what's that one point that you feel, it's a blanket statement, what you're making, but more specifically, if politicians were to address one of these areas, what would that what area would that be?
I think what they need to do is they need to try to create learning spaces for kids that are fun for them, so that they enjoy learning. And if a child doesn't enjoy learning, don't try to penalise that child and try to criminalise that child effectively. If a child is not really getting a subject or is not engaging with a subject, then there are things that schools can do to support that child rather than trying to say, well, that child's not worth it.
And more generally, I want to ask all of you this question, and we go out to a lot of Asian viewers, but apart from, do you think politicians have got this thing about addressing communities right? Do you think they're doing it the right way? Or do you think there's only lip service, that they kind of come down to a lot of events and say that, we want to be really, we are really listening to Asian people or really listening to black people, but actually you don't see that happening in real life. Do you think that? Well,
I don't really see that happening in real life in any sense. My main concern is young people in general. We already come from multicultural backgrounds. We live in a multicultural environment. So I understand that politics are a bit worried about different backgrounds, but I think if you target young people in general, so that when they are allowed to vote, they're fully informed, they want to vote. Like someone mentioned earlier, black people back in the day had gone through so much strain to be able to vote, and we don't have that strain anymore. We're just not voting, or the young people are just not voting, so lack of confidence and things like that. So I think inform them and sent them on their way.
Okay. This gets me to the point that you were making off camera, that you're saying that younger people almost disengage with politics, right? I mean, tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, well, basically, I think politics is not diverse enough, and everyone that's sort of MP or members of parliament, they've peaked, they're in their seat, that is what it looks like for them. The only place they're moving to is the Lords. Do you know what I mean? That's the next move for them. So, to be honest, you need to focus on the younger generation, get more BME people into politics, you know what I mean? So we could represent, because each community is diverse, it's not just one particular person.
Why do you think more people from BME backgrounds aren't joining politics?
Well, that's what the House of Commons is for. It's for common people like myself and you to get elected to represent our local.
Why is it that more people aren't joining politics?
Because the alienation.
What's that?
I think a lot of them are alienated, and there's a lack of confidence, and it's very much, I can't identify with those people, so I couldn't possibly be one of those.
Really? You think so? Yourself? You
No,
think so?
not myself, but I know that a lot of people that struggle with confidence issues just believe that I don't understand, it doesn't concern me, and it's not going to put food on my table today.
Yeah. So why should I join politics? Okay. Do you broadly agree with that, or do you have a different view on this?
No,
I mean, younger people.
I totally agree with everything that's been said, and also you mentioned the House of Commons. The House of Commons needs to look like the people who they're supposed to be representing, and we need to have a more diverse set of MPs, and we need to have ministers that look like us, that speak for us or speak like us.
But I speak to politicians all the time, and they say that they're very committed to putting more people from BME backgrounds into the House of Commons. They often give tickets to a lot of people from Asian backgrounds, from BME backgrounds. But when you look at the numbers, out of 650 people who were elected to the House of Commons in 2010, less than 30 belong to BME backgrounds. So I mean, that's less than 30 out of 650. That number speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, if people see that they've got an electorate that doesn't look like them, then they're less likely to try to go and put themselves forward. And so I think they just need to put their money where their mouth is. So they need to look as though they're actively seeking your vote. And they also need to do well with their policies. I mean, unfortunately, our government has got some issues to do with, it's got foreign policy that obviously disengages lots and lots of the electorate. If the electorate saw that the policies actually spoke to them, then they'd be more likely to vote, but also to put themselves forward and say, I want to be part of this.
So just before you wrap, I want to ask all of you, what then would you say to a politician? I mean, if you were to look into the camera and say to a politician and talk about this issue of diversity, what would you say to them? So I'll start with you.
Okay, I would just say, to any politician that's listening, every individual has a sort of hierarchy of needs, and if any of those needs, for whatever reason it may be, is not met, they cannot move, or they're stationary from there on. And that's what my main problem is. There's not enough support and provision to the young people to help them to achieve what they need to achieve. Do you know what I mean? There's not enough of that in place. So.
And out of the 3 people or 4 people in British politics at the moment, who do you think is your candidate for Prime Minister? Who do you think should become the Prime Minister?
I prefer not to say at this moment in time. Nothing's really kind of come out to me as, it's not, nothing's really struck me to say I'm behind this one or the other one, you know what I mean? So I'm just keeping neutral about that, Keeping a neutral stance.
Will you be voting?
Yes, I will be voting, yes.
But you're undecided who you want to vote for?
Decided at the moment, yes.
What about yourself, ma'am? Who do you think, out of all the main people in British politics, and the fact that there aren't any women as well, does that, talk to me a bit about that? But who do you think is your preferred candidate for Prime Minister?
It's going to be very difficult for me to say because, unfortunately, the 3 main parties have not necessarily been speaking to me on particular issues, and the main issue is the issue of immigration.
What about the non-main party?
The non-main parties. The Greens are looking very attractive at the moment. Is all I'm going to say.
Okay, very good. So we have out of 50% of this panel is a lukewarm response to the Greens. What about the two of you? Who do you think is the one candidate that you would want to cast your vote for?
I still feel like there's a lot that I don't understand about politics at the moment, so I wouldn't give any one person my vote. I still got a little bit of self-educating to do.
Okay. So really undecided panel here. Huh? I mean, all of you are going to be swing voters. You don't know which way you're going to vote, but you're definitely going to vote, right?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay, what about you, son?
Since I've been allowed to vote, I've voted a non-vote, very much like Shams, the lack of understanding. I mean, I'm an adult, but I'm a young adult. And right now I'm in a stage in my life where I'm definitely voting for someone this year.
Who is that?
I couldn't tell you just yet, but I've got a bit of time. And
Because you've not decided, or you don't?
I haven't decided yet. And the non-vote was personally, for me, was to make sure that politicians knew that it wasn't because I was lazy. It was because I wanted to vote, but I was, malinformed. So misinformed, absolutely.
Very good, fantastic. Very, very interesting to hear all of these views, because when I asked you about the issue that mattered to you and the parties and what parties are saying about it, all of you had some really important points to make. But when I asked you who you're going to vote for, you sort of didn't have any answer at all. That shows that there's a lot of work to be done for politicians to reach out to people like yourselves. I mean, apart from a weak vote for the Greens, I mean, all of you seemed pretty undecided.